Fault number 103 is Clinton O'Brien. Clinton played 130 NRL games during his career, winning a premiership with the Newcastle Knights in 2001. Clinton, the first Redcliffe junior to represent Queensland at origin level, started his NRL career in Sydney with the Roosters, before being a member of the final teams to play for both the South Queensland Crushers and the Gold Coast Chargers. Clinton played 2 origin games, making his debut off the bench in Game 2 of the 1997 series at the MCG. Well, Clinton O'Brien, thanks for your time, mate. What does it mean to you to be a FOG?
It's been very special to think that I could even make that, to play for Queensland. It's something that I cherish. It's very special. And I think it's more special when you talk to your kids and that sort of thing. But yeah, extremely proud.
Well, 1997 was the year. Take us back that time, over 25 years ago now. But what was it like when you received that call to say you were going to represent your state?
I remember it like yesterday. I turned up to training at the South Queensland Crushers, which are not there now, Mark, and I pulled up to training, and Steve Bleakley was our coach back then. He said, "I need to have a word to you." I said, "Yeah, no problem, chicken." So he said, "Listen, I'm not going to play you this weekend." I said, "What do you mean?" I thought I was going okay. He goes, "I just got a phone call. You've been picked in the state of origin." So I go home and pack your gear and get into the travel lodge. So yeah, I remember it like yesterday.
What was your reaction?
Well, actually, before that, I think if you remember, if you listen to 4BC on after lunch or around about 2 o'clock news, they used to name the state of origin on the Wednesday afternoon at about 2 o'clock or 12 o'clock. And my dad rang me and I said, "Dad, I'm just pulling into training. I've just heard the news. I don't know if they picked it or not, but I'm not holding my hopes up. So I'll talk to you later." So, but then as soon as I got out of the car, Chicken grabbed me and wound me up and told me the great news.
Nerves, excitement? What was the emotion?
Oh, huge excitement. It's something that I dreamt I could hopefully do one day. Extremely excited to be, to come in. I remember getting to the travel lodge and I actually got pulled up on the way. I was speeding. I had to go from, we used to live at Albany Creek, and I was driving into the travel lodge, and I got pulled up, and the police said, "Mate, what are you doing?" I went through a red light. I said, "Mate, I've just been picked in the Queensland State of Origin side." He said, "Well, for Christ's sake," he said, "just slow down." I said, "Yeah, sorry." So he let me off. So I went straight in the travel lodge, and then I walked in there and I saw Arthur, and then I turned around and I saw Wally, and I didn't know what to say or what to do, or if anyone would know who I am, or where do I go, where do I stand. So yeah, it was fantastic. And then I remember meeting Billy Moore and Gary Larson, and they grabbed me by the arm and off I went.
When did you feel comfortable?
I felt pretty comfortable the day after training. Once all that stuff was out of the way, I felt fine. And during the whole week, everything was really good. Everyone was it was such like a family. It was easy just to. It's always easy to fall into a pattern with the boys, and everyone got along well. So it's not as if I felt out of sync at all. It was quite easy.
So Paul Vaughton was the coach. Did he make it a bit easier with his approach to the game, or is Paul Vaughton the coach different from Fatty Vaughton?
No, I think Paul is Paul. He was extremely good to me. He didn't want me to change anything. And everything was sort of how he wanted it. It was sort of what you saw is what you get from Fatty, and we had a great time. It was, we had a couple of good nights out there by ourselves, but the team sort of ran its own, so to speak. So yeah, no, it was really good.
Well, take us in the lead up. Your first game was at the MCG, wasn't it? And
yeah,
you were selected for that on the bench. What was it like in the lead up to playing at the Melbourne Cricket Ground for Queensland the first time, and having to sit on the bench waiting for that opportunity?
Yeah, the week was great. The week was fantastic. We did some celebrating at the start of the week. Then we got stuck into some training. I think everything sort of took a turn when we get on the plane to go to Melbourne. We're in Melbourne. There's work to be done, and we got to knuckle down. I do remember staying at one of the big hotels there in the middle of Melbourne. went to the MCG. We had a bit of a run around there. And then, it was all hands on deck, and I was ready to go. It was good. It was a really good feeling. I remember taking the long walk up the chute to get onto the side of the field of the MCG because it was so big. I do remember those days. I remember the beautiful old dressing rooms, and it was fantastic. So.
And the game itself?
Game itself was everything you expected it to be. It was super quick. It was fast. It was hard. A blink, it was half time, and then there was 10 minutes to go. We missed a field goal, so that put us behind. But it was everything. I looked down. I was wearing a maroon jersey. I just couldn't believe it. But yeah, it was a fantastic experience. Fantastic.
And then to get the second opportunity, once again, it wasn't at Lang Park, so both your games were not at home. But to get that second opportunity in Sydney, what did it mean to you to be selected a second time as well?
Yeah, and to be on the run-on side, that's what my dream was. I think my son, I was packing some stuff away the other day, and my son pulled it out, and I looked at it, and I thought, that's what I always wanted to do. That was one thing that was a burning desire. I used to go to sleep every night and just hoping one day that A, I was good enough, B, I could get picked in a Queensland jersey. And thankfully, luckily enough, I got that call. But yeah, very, very proud. Huge.
Was game 2 any different for you than game 1 in terms of how you felt when you got on the field, having that experience already?
You do. You feel a bit more comfortable. But the concentration that you need and the speed that it goes and the toughness of what it is, it doesn't change. But yes, you do feel a bit more in sync with things and how things are working, and it ebbs and flows so quickly. The game, you feel like you got the upper hand, but then they're coming back at you, and everything just goes so quickly. But yes, you do feel a bit more comfortable. Yes.
Let's talk about the journey of a young bloke growing up on the peninsula at Redcliffe who ends up playing or making his origin debut at the MCG of all places. You're a Redcliffe Dolphin junior through and through. How did you end up at Eastern Suburbs in 1993 to start your, professional journey in that respect?
Yeah, so Mark, going through the juniors, I was lucky enough to make a couple of Australian schoolboys teams and under 15s, and probably from under 15s, I was on a scholarship with the Brisbane Broncos when they first came out. Redcliffe was an extremely good, strong club there. Also, in that time, one of our good coaches, as in Mark Murray, and one of our FOGs, was now down with Jack Gibson at the Sydney Roosters. Luckily enough, I wasn't going to go to grade 12. And I made the Australian under-15 schoolboys team, and they said to me, hey, listen, you probably should maybe have a think about sticking around to grade 12, because by the time you're in grade 12, we're going to pick the Kangaroo Tour, and it'll be a tour to Great Britain for 2 months. And with that, you're pretty well assured of a contract somewhere in the Winfield Cup back then, or NRL. And so I decided I had to talk to Mum and Dad. So we knuckled down, and luckily things turned out the way I wanted it to be, and I got picked in the Australian schoolboys. Had a couple of phone calls and conversations with Mark Murray. Jack and Mark Murray flew up, and obviously my parents knew Mark with the Redcliffe connection. My dad was on the board there at the Redcliffe Dolphins. Then Jack came up, who was a pretty polarising sort of a figure. And he said to me, you come and play for us and you'll live with me for the first couple of years. We'll give you an opportunity, see if you're clever enough to take it. So with that, I was stuck behind I really wanted to stay with the Brisbane Broncos. Wayne was really good to me. He said, listen, we've got a couple of young guys, as in Andrew G. he was a year or two older than me, but who was a fantastic player. Mark Home was there. You got Alan Can was there. Peter Ryan and all that was coming through. So I was sort of stuck behind that a little bit. So really for me, it was a place where I could play first grade quicker. Plus the opportunity to be under Jack Gibson, the calming figure of Mark Murray. And I really liked what the Roosters stood for too. So away we went. I went and signed a contract with them. 23
matches there. Was it tough in Sydney? How'd you settle in?
Yeah, well, didn't know how to cook a boiled egg. Got back from the Kangaroo Tour, Junior Kangaroos, on Christmas Eve. I think I left on might have been New Year's Day or the 2nd of January, straight to Sydney. Had never been to Bondi or to the eastern suburbs, wouldn't even know what it was like. So very daunting. I did struggle with that for 12 months, but I came back and everyone was doing the same thing. So, and I was just starting to enjoy things. I think I was getting pretty close to having a bit of a run in first grade. So away I went. So that was no problem whatsoever.
So as I mentioned, the 23 matches in those 3 years you were there. How'd you end up back at the South Queensland Crushers, your next stop?
We had a bit of turmoil at the Roosters and around that 1994 era, with Jack leaving, talks that Phil Gould was coming in for 95, and it was a bit of a changing sort of a period. And then there was word of, obviously, the South Queensland Crushers was going to be sort of the sibling to the Broncos. I always would have liked to have played for the Broncos or a one-team town sort of a player. And from what I saw with the South Queensland Crushers, I got an opportunity there. I just started to play first grade. I was only nearly 19. Chance to go home, and my thoughts were, that's me. I'm at the Crushers. That'll see me out for the next 7 or 8 years or 10 years, and that'll do me. That'll be fantastic. And yeah, things happen, and we know that's not the case now. But that was my process on how I thought it would go to. That would be my second and last club.
The irony of that is, of course, with all the dramas and the sad demise of the Crushers, you had a year at the Gold Coast, and then you ended up at Newcastle. When you went to Newcastle, what were your expectations when you arrived at that club? You're obviously, represented at Origin level. You were walking into a club that had a future immortal, etc., and a one-team town that you spoke about. What were your expectations when you went to Newcastle?
It's funny how it all turned out. I remember it was game 2 on the Origin, and we just finished training. We were training at Souths in Brisbane, and Fatty goes to me, he goes, Aby, he said, listen, he said, you need to take this phone call. And I said, no, who is it? He goes, Paul Harrigan. I said, what's going on? Are you G'ing me up or what's going on? So he goes, no, the Chief's on the phone. So I got on the phone. I said, g'day, mate, how are you? I said, this is Clinton. He goes, hey, good. He goes, now, Chief goes, now listen, he said, just quickly, he said, you haven't signed anywhere, have you? He goes, no. I said, I haven't, mate. And he goes, well, listen, you're not going anywhere. You're coming to us. You're coming to Newcastle. Malcolm Really's going to give you a call shortly. He said, I'll talk to you later on. So anyway, that's how things happened there. Getting to Newcastle, I walked into a team of guys that were born and bred in the Hunter Valley. Really good player, really good mates. They were on the cusp of just about to be, playing first grade and to be superstars of likes of, Matt Gidley, Danny Badiris, all those sort of guys. And then you throw into a mix of Ben Kennedy, Matty Parsons, and then we've got the Johnsies, and we've got Tony Butterfield and Paul Harrigan, our great leader. I got down there and I was absolutely blown away because I've had my backside kicked a couple of times at the Crushers, and I know what it's like to come stone cold motherless last, and to walk into a team of young superstars and the football they play was just dynamite, absolutely dynamite.
Well, how would you like to be the owner of one of these? A FOGS authentic game ball signed by Wally Lewis at the 2023 Wally Lewis medalist Reuben Cotter. Now, all you have to do is subscribe, like, and drop a comment below. And each week, gentlemen, we'll be giving away one of these footballs to one of the viewers of the FOGS Queenslander podcast. Well done.
Well, it's good to be able to hand them on to the general public who like it, as long as we don't get blamed for breaking one of Mum's windows when they're kicking it around the backyard or tossing it around.
But this will be framed in a nice
Reuben Cotter's name. Wow.
Do you know how to subscribe and like and do all that, Gilly? No?
Oh. We can help you, mate. We can help you.
Help me out, fellas.
The two daughters can help you out.
So we have one of these to give away each week until stocks run out, until Wally gets sick and tired of signing them and Reuben Cotter disappears. But just subscribe to our channel, FOGS Queenslander Podcast. Write a comment below and click that like button. Everyone goes into the draw, and we've got one of these to give away each week.
Well, take us through that premiership year, that successful year when you found yourself as part of the 17 that won a competition. What was going through your head then? There you are, the ultimate, team performance, the ultimate team goal.
Yeah. I was getting pretty. I must have been 28, I think, or 28 or 29. But our team, as I said, the Tamana Tahus and the Badirises and the Gidleys, they were all just starting to play Origin, and they were kids, but they were, they'd had a couple of years of first grade, and we had a change of coach in Warren Ryan. We had Michael Hagan, who I think made a huge difference to us. He was an extremely good coach and a manager of men. And the season started off for us pretty well. And then I can't remember if it was round 11 or somewhere around then that Andrew got a fairly significant ankle injury or something with his ankle or leg or something. So he'd missed 6 or 8 weeks. We had a bit of a slump or something there. And then as soon as he came back, we were dynamite. We were just absolutely. He was jumping out of his skin as he does, and the bigger the challenge, the more excited he would get, and which would make the team so much more excited. And we were pretty well. We were ready for anything that would throw in front of us there.
I mean, that particular win in the grand final over Parramatta, It was one of the great performances from a team, Newcastle. You never really let Parramatta into that match. It must have been one of those extraordinary feelings where you don't want to look too far ahead, but you realise that you're playing with a team that's just on. Yeah.
I think the week before we played the prelim, or we had the week off, sorry, the prelim game that we played against Cronulla was probably a harder game. But yes, as soon as we come to Parramatta, I mean, Parramatta did talk that they'd won X amount of games in a row and this and that, and Brian Smith wanted to have all the headlines that week, which was fine by us. We wanted to stay at Newcastle and do what we wanted to do, and we were very confident. I do remember one significant day and night we played the prelim. We beat Cronulla by 2 points, I believe, if I remember rightly. We come into the dressing rooms, and I still remember looking at Tamana Tahu. I looked at Ben Kennedy. I looked at Andrew Johns in the eyes. We didn't really care who you put in front of us. The steely look that we had in those guys' eyes, in those athletes' eyes, it didn't really matter. We'd won it that weekend. It was a really polarising sort of a dressing room that night. I'll never ever forget that.
Who was the best player you played with?
Best footballer obviously would be Andrew. He was just, some of the things he would do would just, the bigger the occasion, how he'd find his way through things. People would ask me, what's he like to play with? It's like I've got the best seat in the house because I wasn't too far from him all the time, and some of the things that he could do and some of the the defence that he'd be able to tolerate and do himself was quite amazing.
So he was the best, but do you have, might be an unfair question, but a favourite player, just someone, a teammate of yours over the years that you love playing with?
Obviously Paul was great. I loved playing with Butsy. Tony Butterfield he epitomises what Newcastle's about. I played with an incredible athlete by the name of Ben Kennedy. There was nothing he could not do. He was just an out and out footballer. Tamana Tahu, who I love playing with, he was a freak of nature. There was so many of them, but Butsy was probably one of those guys that would be just very resilient, extremely tough. Wouldn't give you a yard, wouldn't talk on the field, but he'd just keep on turning up.
Well, then one player you never got to play with from any era that you would love to have played with?
I would love to have played with Wally Fulton-Smith. He was my hero growing up. Gator would have been fantastic. I remember sitting on the hill at Redcliffe and watching him come through, and then you watch him on a Wednesday night. He's playing for State of Origin in Sydney, but I see him at Redcliffe Dolphin Oval the next day, and then he gets picked in the Australian team. So I would have loved to play with Gator.
Maybe another unfair question. Out of all the games you played, grand final successes, Origin and Origin debut, is there one game that stands out? It may not even be one of those games. Is there a favourite game you look back on more fondly than others?
I think I mean, obviously the grand final was just the epitomises everything, the work that you go through. Another good night was when I won the 1993 under-21s grand final, which I'd come from Redcliffe and had never played senior football before, and after a year or two at Roosters we won that. That was a special night as well. But yeah, probably the grand final was one of those nights that were just the whole week, the build up, the pressure, especially with Newcastle, everywhere you went there was the amount of, how would I say, that the pressure of us, what the town really wanted us to do. The expectation of us was we needed to win, and we needed to win, because of the fans that we had, and they expected us to win too. Yeah.
Who had the biggest influence on your career?
Obviously my parents, my mum and dad. There's another gentleman called Albert Tabone who's in Sydney. He had a huge impact on me. But more so my parents. I was pretty hard on myself too. I was, you surround yourself with good people. Jack always used to tell me that, so I always used to surround myself with good people. So there was a lot of very good influences along the way. There wasn't just one. But I always used to look for that influence in people, and stick to them and follow those people through. But yeah.
So those Origin jerseys and that Newcastle Grand Final jersey, you mentioned a young bloke pulled it out of packaging. Surely one of them's framed or something, isn't it? What, are you a memorabilia guy like that, or you're not old enough yet?
Yeah, actually, my parents have just moved house, and I just moved house probably 12 months ago. I've given one to my junior club, which is Redcliffe. I was a junior there, so they've got one of those in the leagues club now. And I've kept all my footy jerseys. I liked all that sort of thing and memorabilia, so I've kept everything from under 12s all the way through. And my mother just gave me a big bundle of pictures of, whether they were teams or South Queensland teams or Brisbane North teams or Brisbane under-17s, Queensland under-17s. So I've just got those in the last 10 days. So all the kids are going through that and have a look at that. So,
Clinton, you've been retired now for over 20 years, so you can look back and reflect. How do you reflect on your career now that you're retired a couple of decades? The fact that you've represented your state at Origin level on a couple of occasions, you've won a premiership with the Newcastle Knights. How does that young boy that used to go to Dolphin Oval to watch the Dolphins play reflect on what you've achieved in the game now?
Pretty well satisfied. I think I sapped as much ability out of myself as I possibly could. I wasn't the most skillful of guys, but I did work hard. So probably I think I squeezed the most I could possibly get out of my ability. I'm very happy that I got to A, to win a grand final, B, to be in a fantastic team like that, and my biggest dream was I didn't really dream of playing for Australia, but the Queensland was extremely important to me.
Thanks so much for your time and congratulations on a wonderful career.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you.
Thanks for watching this episode of the FOGS Queenslander Podcast. If there's a FOG you want to hear from, leave a comment to let us know. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our videos.